Hello and welcome to The Mill. I'm your host, Dusty Crane, and this week was a particularly good week in Stonemaier news, in my opinion, because we got a nice look at where Stonemaier Games is and where they're going in terms of their values and, you know, their stated values, and how that kind of segued into giving us a peek at one of the new features in the Viticulture Expansion, which, speaking of viticulture, this week is the 8-year anniversary of Viticulture. And so, if you are a member of the Facebook group, you may have seen Jamey actually say, if enough people, I think he was like relatively modest, if 25 people share a picture of them playing Viticulture this weekend, that he will share a picture or a teaser of the Viticulture Expansion. Now, if you've played Viticulture or you're playing it this weekend, take a picture because I want to see these teasers, and I promise you I will do the same. I'll get a picture up there, point Jamey to it, tag him in it. That was part of it. Tag him in it to let him know that it is there. The second thing we got this week was a look at the Wingspan Nesting Box. The third prototype actually made its way to Jamey, and he shared some pictures on the Stonemaier Games blog, and I'll go ahead and bring that up here in just a second. But the very first thing I wanted to talk to you about was a blog post article that Jamey wrote this week called Mamas, Papas, and Pride. And he mentions a video a few weeks ago made by Matthew McCack at Room 51. And in the video, Matthew talks about the husband and wife card, the cards in Everdell, the board game by Starling Games, and how those cards in particular made them feel. And they shared their experience and how this card makes them feel, and the fact that there's also a bonus card that gives you points for every other husband and wife card. I want to say mamas and papas, but I'll get to that in a minute. See, mamas and papas on page. But the husband and wife card, how it makes them feel, and how there's a bonus card that actually gives you points for the husbands and wives, I almost did it again, that are in each other town that you're playing in Everdell. It was a fantastic video, in my opinion, because in Matthew's case here, Matthew talks about how they feel excluded. You know, why is it just a husband and wife card? It very easily could have been spouse and spouse. I'm a husband, but, you know, my document, you know, there's legal documentation still says my spouse is my wife, and vice versa. You can call me, it's interchangeable. Husband, wife, spouse, spouse. Even partner is interchangeable, although that one's a little more, it's becoming more commonly used now, but like in the past you didn't really hear somebody say, oh, this is my partner, talking about their husband or their wife. But it's becoming more common now. But my point is that Starling could very easily remedy this and help Matthew see themselves in this game and still, you know, honor the game itself and honor the relationship. I think Matthew mentions in the video that the designer actually made the husband and wife card as a tribute to their own relationship, so that he saw him and his wife in the game. And you could still do, and so to my point was, you could still do spouse and spouse, and it'd still be about your wife or your husband, and also allow other people to be represented. And so for me, as a married white guy, I am probably what most would consider default, right? Like they talk about, you know, who's they? I don't know. You know, you hear about like the white male view or whatever, and I see things through that lens, right? Because that's my life experience. So, of course, in my mind, I know, okay, well, a husband and wife would be hurtful for somebody who doesn't have the title husband or wife, or it could be. Okay, there are plenty of people that are in the LGBTQ plus community who do not care about the fact that there's a husband and a wife card. That's fine. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it at all. at all. I'm just saying that you could have made one tiny little tweak and then made so many other people feel represented. If I saw a spouse and spouse card, hey, find this spouse and you get this benefit. Find the other spouse, you got the two spouses there. You have this benefit. Super easy to accommodate and help other people feel welcome. I think that's something that they could easily do. And I'm getting way out into I guess just repeating myself, and so that wasn't the intention. At the end of that video, or in the comments of that video, Jamey decided to share some information. He said, after that, he knows that people have reached out to him and said that the mamas and the papas cards are heteronormative, which, if you're unfamiliar with the term, it just means that it reinforces the fact that, some typical relationship is a male and a female, heterosexual. And again, I'm not making any judgment calls there. Obviously, I'm in a heterosexual relationship. But that the fact that there's mamas and papas as a part of the game reinforces that what the heteronormative thing. I don't know. I can't say if it's like, I can't say trend or whatever. I know there's a proper term for it. I'm probably the worst person to be talking because I know my heart is in the right place. I'm not always sure my mind and my brain are engaged properly. In any case, Jamey mentions that people have brought that concern to him before, and he has decided to address it in this expansion for viticulture. So here we have the normal or the current mamas and papas cards. We got the blue Loki, Tom Hiddleston, the blue Loki cards, which are the papas, in this case Papa Allen. And we have the red or pink cards that are the mama cards that are Christine. And so in this expansion, Jamey's going to go ahead and flip-flop it. And you will have papa cards with the red back or pink back, and you will have mama cards with the blue back. And what could happen in your game, you shuffle these all together, and you could end up with two papas or two mamas, or you can choose to not use the old content at all, or the current content at all, so that you only end up with two mamas, or that you only end up with two papas, or you can just decide not to play with them, the new cards at all, and keep playing with the same mamas and papas to make sure you get that. It's a very simple change. To make other people feel included without excluding anyone. We already have mamas and papas cards. Getting new ones doesn't change anything. But by having the ability to get papa and papa cards or mama and mama cards, Stonemaier Games has made viticulture even more inclusive. In my opinion, it's a very, very kind thing to do when you have a stated goal of bringing joy to tabletops worldwide, and you have an opportunity to expand who is, I guess, a benefactor of that joy, or who's represented in that joy. I think it's very worthwhile that somebody feels seen and somebody feels valued and somebody feels accepted. I think that's wonderful. In particular, I'm very proud of Stonemaier Games for doing that. They've come out and they've made value statements in the past, such as their BIPOC statement, and supporting people, other people who are maybe not represented and seeing themselves in board game media. I think that's awesome. And so I'm gonna highly recommend that you go check out this blog post and watch this video in particular, because even if you're not a member of the LGBTQ plus community, there's something there for you. There's something worthwhile in hearing from somebody else's, learning from their life experiences. I see things through the lens of my life experience. There's a lot of benefit from seeing life through the life experiences of someone else. And this video in particular, Matthew does such a great job of, yes, expressing the concern that they have with the husband and wife card, but also talking about how much they love the game. This is not, it says not a review of Everdell. It's not a bashing of Everdell. It's simply, I guess this mind over meta is it, and I'm new to the channel too. I subscribe now, but I hadn't seen it before. But this is kind of a look at almost like the psychology of board games too. And so in this case, they were talking about, Matthew was talking about how seeing the husband and wife card made them feel, and expressed that they felt hurt. And if you don't see things from that perspective, you might be like, why does that hurt? Look around, you see it everywhere. But again, it's in the video, and it's so powerful, and it's so worthwhile. And nowhere in that video is Matthew saying you need to see it my way. And I think that's very important. I think it's very important that they're just like, hear me out and draw your own conclusion. And I just think there's something really valuable in that. The second, so please check out the video. The second thing that we got this week was this Wingspan Nesting Box and preview, the third prototype. I'm not gonna, I'll bring these up full screen, so I'm not just saying like, hey, look over my shoulder at my browser here. But Jamey got the third prototype from Panda, and we see, another picture of the size of this box. The whole idea is to let it fit inside a board game shelf. Probably the Kallax is kind of considered the board game shelf, and everything's got to fit in a Kallax. So that is certainly a part of it. It will. One of the goals too, the design goals, is that it'll fit in board game bags. So you get a big box, you want to carry Wingspan around all your content. Let's go ahead and look at what the different layers are. Now, Jamey's mentioned before, this is a 3-layer design. There's a top layer that's meant to hold the boards and the instructions and the kind of the flat stuff there. It'll also hold the neoprene mats if you got those. And we see a picture of Walter showing us how those ribbons on the side actually work. You can get your fingers in there and lift that up. And Walter's doing a good job of modeling what that looks like. We also get a look at the second layer of the nesting box. We got room for the bird feeder, we got room for some cards, we got the bonus cards, the first player token, the Automa stuff. And we also see, Jamey mentioned that, there's going to be room for if you bought a third-party organizer, but this one will have an organizer in it as well. And we see the very first look at this, or the very first tray, because there's now 2 different trays that are different formats, and we'll get to why that is right now. In this first picture, you can see that everything's sorted real nice. You got your rodents and your worms, your invertebrates, your fruit. You got your eggs all tossed up there, and your bonus tokens, and your round tracker. But when we take a look at the second one, you can see this picture here. Jamey's just kind of modeling that you can get your hand in there to get it out easier. And we also got a picture of the second of the 2 trays. When Jamey kind of reached out to people or put the poll out there, because this has been a very collaborative effort, when he put the that news out there that this was being made, some people wanted to organize their food. They wanted an individual tray for the grain and the fish and the the rodents and all that stuff. And then other people are like, I just toss it all in there. So whichever kind you are, whether you're a sorter or a mash it all together, you got a tray there that's for you to put out to the table. There's a nice place to hold the dice and the bonus tiles and the round trackers. You can take those out of the box, put them on the table if you'd like, or of course you can use the clear plastic trays that came with it. In fact, we also get a look at this removable card tray right here is actually to fill up some of that space that if you have a third-party organizer, it's meant for that base game box. And so there's going to be some wiggle room. This just serves the purpose of filling up some of that room, but also putting bird cards in there for storage. And yes, it will hold sleeved cards as well. However, Jamey did mention that if you use the really premium sleeves that are really thick, by the end of it all, you're probably going to need to use this very bottom layer to hold some cards too. But if you're just using regular sleeves, you should be fine. Obviously, he's not putting any constraints on Elizabeth, and if she, reaches a continent and she's like, we're going to blow this thing out of the water, we're going to have a whole brand new base box, that's what we're going to do. Our expansion is going to be a standalone. There's going to be a ton of cards. If that ever happened, obviously the plans will change a little bit. But for now, you should be able to get it all in the box if you use just regular sleeves or not. Then this bottom layer here, this holds the trays that we got in the Wingspan base box, the trays we got in the Europe expansion, and what's really nice is those little clear trays that came in the box, like those fit side by side too. That's really cool. It wasn't anything that I was expecting. I didn't even think about it, to be honest. So I'm glad that Jamey or whoever probably mentioned it in coming up with the idea, mentioned it, because it fits nicely, and Jamey doesn't want to create waste. He doesn't want you to throw anything away. So it's nice that it fits in there. And if you wanted to throw some food in those dishes and move them around the table, that's a nice way to do it. Finally, Jamey shares a picture of what that prototyping process looks like, sitting on the floor, taking a look at all the components. And if you were ever curious, I guess, what prototype inspection looks like, there it is. T-shirt and sweatpants. That's the way I like to work. I'll take it. And that is what we have of our third prototype look at the nesting box. Apparently there's another one that's on its way soon. I didn't notice what that was meant to look like, but if you weren't aware, it's not going to be a plain white box. There's going to be art on the insert. There's going to be art on the box itself. I'm sure it's going to be a beautiful thing to look at. Hopefully, maybe we'll get some teasers on what kind of birds to expect in the expansions if they kind of throw just a bunch of birds on that box. Someone mentioned a really cool idea. I don't remember who it was, but they said it would be neat if the top layer of the board was like the art of the woodlands, and then the middle layer was the grasslands, and then the bottom layer was the wetlands. I thought that sounded super awesome. I hope that gets worked into the art on the inside of the box, but we'll see. Was there anything that you didn't see from the nesting prototype box that you are hoping to, or that you haven't seen yet? Or go ahead and drop it in the comments, but more importantly, drop it in the blog over on Stonemaier Games or on the Wingspan Facebook group, just so that gets seen and considered. And I'm just really looking forward to it. I had my very first in-person board game night, and last night, since everything shut down, my son invited a friend over that has been vaccinated, and the three of us sat around the table, and as he's admiring the board game shelf, he goes, "You got a lot of Wingspan games." And so I explained he's not a native board gamer. He's new to hobby board gaming. And so I was explaining, we got different expansions. So this is the base game. This is the European expansion. I guess we've reached the end of my voice. And, this is the Oceania expansion. And he's like, well, I mean, if it's an expansion, why, do you have everything? I'm like, listen, I got the boards in the Oceania box. I got bird cards in the European expansion. I got the bird feeder in the base game, and just stuff all over the place. So the sooner I can get the nesting box on my shelf and all that Wingspan content in one place, the happier I'm going to be. Those expansion boxes can come in here into my office and give me something to look at while I'm working, make me happy. I'm excited for that to happen. Really, really looking forward to that nesting box to put everything together and organize things. And that, my friends, is all I have for you this week. Please check out, I almost said at Area 51. Please check out Room 51. Please check out Matthew's video. Check out the Stonemaier Game blog. Mamas, Papas, and Pride was that blog post. Wingspan Nesting Box is just the page that's on the Stonemaier blog. Check those out. If you are celebrating Pride this month, happy Pride to you. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.